Okay, this is a 2007 Ford Expedition regular Eddie Bauer. I had to figure out how to remove this bumper cover, and it was very, very difficult to figure out on my own. I couldn't find any videos out there, so once I found out the hard way how to do this, I figured I would shoot a video to make it easier for the next guy who comes along. So it actually turns out it's a lot easier than it looks. It's actually held on by only 11 bolts, if I count it correctly. So there's 3 here, and these are size 7, if I remember correctly, or no. They're either 7 or 8. They're 8 millimeter. And then over on the side, there are 2 bolts in the wheel well. One there and one there. And these are size, you can see that and you can't see that. These are size 7. And then for this location, you're going to want to have some kind of a small ratchet, or I was able to use a right angle attachment on my power driver to make it easier. If you don't have either of those, you can just use a wrench and do it by hand. It'll just take you longer. So there's 2 on that side, and then in the same location, 2 on the other side. Right there. And right there. And then the rest of them are underneath the truck. So I'll get down there and hopefully you can see this. Now you don't really need to remove the spare tire. You can if you want, but it's not really in the way. So the other ones are right here on the inside. Right there and right there. And those are 10 millimeter. And for those, you're going to need a deep wall socket because of these. These are actually nuts that spin off of the bolt that poke through from the outside of the cladding. So you'll need a deep wall socket to fit over those bolts that are sticking through. And then the other things you'll need to consider are, there's these little plastic rivets that push in here that hold on this extension. So I'll show you the new piece that I'm going to be having installed. This actually attaches to the bumper cover. And so the way it holds on is through this hole, using one of these pieces. I think it's this one. So I'll give you all the part numbers and links to them on the Ford Parts website. And then of course, in order to pull that off, you're going to need a trim removal tool, and they always break. So I had to buy new ones. So there's those 2. There's one here, and then the other one is over on this side, and you can see I've already removed them from when I went through the learning process on my own a while back. And then the other 2 are these little flaps here. It's just, cosmetic. You don't really need to worry about this, but same thing, trim removal tool, and they'll break. So you'll need to replace it when you put the new one on. So the reason why I wanted to do this was when I bought the truck, the person who previously owned it had crunched this, and there's a bunch of other, I guess they ran into something there. So it was ugly. I drove it this way for many years, and then more recently I decided I wanted to look pretty again. So I went through the process, learned the hard way. So here's the new pieces. That's the bumper cover, and of course it comes paint to match. So this needs to go to the body shop, and I decided that I can't put this back together on my own. So the body shop is going to install it for me after they paint it. So that's the bumper cover. These 2 extensions, which are these guys right here that wrap around. And then the step cover. Those are these little plastic push pins or plastic rivets, I guess they are. And that's what holds the parking sensor in place, the parking sensor mount. So I'll show you that when we get in there. And then there's also these two little pieces. I don't know exactly what they call them, but it mounts right there. So these are painted gold on my truck. Not just there. So all told, the parts ran in total about $900 for all the parts. I'm gonna pay the body shop about another $1,000 to paint and install it all. So it costed me a little more than I anticipated, as things usually do. Just so you know what you're getting into if you decide to do something similar. So I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video. I'm gonna mount it on my tripod, mount the phone on my tripod, and you can watch me pull the old one so you know what to do. Alrighty, here we go. Alrighty. All the fasteners are off. So now comes the fun part. Comes off on that side. Disengages on that side. This. It's off. Alright, so I told you this thing here, that's the parking sensor, the backup proximity sensor. So it fastens in there. I think these are 10 millimeter bolts that holds that hold that sucker in. And this is the electrical connection mount. So I went ahead and I disconnected the wiring harness to make it easier to maneuver. And then, oops. So the step pad, when you take it off, I showed you before, those little plastic pins, I suppose you would call them. And again, these things, they come with the new step pad. So you don't need to worry about that. They come with it. So they mount in there. They just slide in like that. If you can see that. They slide in. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. So then once you have that, you just line them up with the holes. Okay, so I flipped it over, and here's the parking sensor mount. So you can see the pins are sticking through from the top. So the way this is held in place when it's all put back together properly, something like that. So I'm having trouble getting them all to line up at the same time, but you can kind of visualize what I'm talking about here. So once you get them all lined up, then you've got these little push nuts that come with it. And again, I don't know exactly how you would put those on. Some kind of a crimping tool, I suppose. But they just basically press on. So there's no threads. I suppose you would just press them on somehow. And that's how this mount is held in place when the bumper cover is put back on. And then the last thing I wanted to point out here is these mounting plates. So these are the bolts that stick through from the outside that those nuts spin onto, right? So those are actually on this reinforcement plate. So this is a new one. And here's where I kind of got stuck. I don't know how this is. Well, you can see, this would have been impossible for me because I don't have the right tools or the expertise or training. So there's rivets here and here that hold it on. And then, these little clips, I guess, they like snap in somehow. And I was trying to separate this and, pretty much impossible. And then the other thing is, this extension piece, if you look here, there's 3 rivets, one there, and one right there. So that's what the rivet looks like from underneath. So you can see it goes up from underneath, and then, it's riveted on from the top. So again, special fastener and special tool. And I'm hoping that the body part, or the body shop, will know what to do here, have the right tools. I'm sure they deal with this stuff every day, so I'm assuming that they will. And very likely they're probably going to have to order these fasteners, because they didn't seem to be available to me as a consumer. So maybe they're available through some vendor network or whatever. But those are the parts that I'm missing, these pieces, these fasteners. And that's basically what stopped me from finishing this job. I've been trying to identify these plastic retainers that the schematics talk about. So there's actually 3 of them that I ended up buying. And I've printed out the schematics for all 3 of them. So this one is the rivet. They call it a blind rivet. And you can see on the schematic, it's for the bumper extension right here. So that would be this piece that attaches right here below the tail light. Now the thing is it doesn't look like it really matches the original. So if you put it in there, you can see that the outline of the original fastener is obviously bigger than what this schematic tells me I should be using. So that tells me that they must have made some changes at some point. The interesting thing is, this one, which according to the schematic is for a completely different area of the truck, actually matches better here. So I'm not sure exactly what the body shop is going to end up doing, but I'm going to give them all 3 of these. This one, either this one, where the schematic actually tells me, or possibly this one, which the schematic talks about the wheel well, where, if you remember in my original video on my truck, uses these screws, the 7mm screws. So it looks like at some point they may have actually changed that as well. But over on this side, toward the front of the truck, you can see these are these retainer pins. So that does look identical on those 2. So I suppose when I take it to the body shop and have them do this, they probably won't use these pins, but perhaps they could use them underneath, either these or these shorter, fatter ones. Either one. So if we take a look underneath, we've got these 4. That one there, and then over there, and then on the other side as well, right there, and then right there. So for example, I could push that in, and it looks like it probably would match. Or maybe the thinner, longer one would work too. So again, it probably doesn't really matter, just as long as you put something in there to keep it together. But like I said, when I take it to the body shop, I'll give them all of them, and they can decide which ones they want to use where, and I really don't care. But I just wanted to clarify that, because when you take a look at your truck, it's probably going to be different, because of course, you know, they make changes, and it probably depends on which assembly plant it was built at, and all that stuff. So anyway. So here's the end result. The body shop did a wonderful job. As you can see, it's nice and pretty, brand new. And it looks like they may have even replaced these screws. They look brand new to me. And then down here, I took a look, and I found out that what I said before about these, and this is actually a screw. It's not one of those plastic push pins that, like I was saying before, so I wanted to point that out. So it's just these two, this one and then the one on that side over there. But other than that, oh, and the one other thing that I noticed, and I'm not sure if I'm going to really worry about this, but it's a little bit annoying. So as you can see here, this is actually a little bit loose, and I'm not quite sure why. I might take a closer look at that and see if I can figure out what's going on. But of course, you know, this is under the tailgate when it's closed, so it's not like it's going to go anywhere, but it's a little bit annoying. But other than that, they did a great job. It's beautiful. It took about 4 days for them to do this. So very quickly, I decided to just go ahead and pull the tail light just to see if I could see what was going on there. And as you can see, it's, you know, you really can't see anything, but the plastic pin, you know, came out pretty easily, you know, didn't even damage it. And if you look in here, it looks like what may be going on there. There's a little, I don't know, plastic sleeve, I guess you would call it. It looks like it's broken, and that's probably why the pin is not pushing in there securely. So I don't know if it's worth trying to fix this, because to get in there and replace that little sleeve, of course I'd have to pull the entire bumper cover back off, and if I were to do that, of course I would probably damage it, scratch it or something, and frankly I spent too much money and went through too much, and it looks too pretty, so not worth it. So I think I'll just leave it the way it is. So there we go. That's the answer. So anyway.